Hello and welcome to the Adapt and Survive Skype video series. I'm here with Julie Lassaigne, who is the ETRC Secretary General. Thank you so much for talking with us today. Really interested to hear what you had to say in regards to how the industry is dealing with the COVID-19 crisis. First and foremost, I wanted to ask how you're doing, really, because I think that's just as important as any other question I'm asking you today.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. Good morning. Good morning to all our viewers as well. I think, I thought it was difficult to be a parent of two young children when I had a full-time job and I was traveling almost every week. And I realized that somehow it's even more difficult to be a parent of two young children with a full-time job, but still staying at home the whole week, trying to be a teacher as well. But we have few times off. But luckily, both my husband and I are working from home, so we try to coordinate our time schedules, especially when we have video calls like today. But overall, we both feel really lucky. We live in a great environment. We have a park in the street, so we do take short walks with the kids, which is great to empty our minds. Most importantly, none of our relatives or our friends have been hit with the virus. So overall, we are in very good spirits, and we just have to wait for the storm to pass. I think the real heroes, as we say, are fighting for us out there. So staying home is a very small contribution in comparison to what the rest of the world is doing. So I think it's been good overall. Yeah.
Well said, Julie. I think that's a really important point about doing our part. It's not difficult for us to stay home. Is it really in comparison with some of the other roles that people are having to play at the moment? I mean, when you were first appointed ETRC Secretary General, I bet you never dreamed you would be dealing with such a grave crisis and multifaceted challenge. How are you able to actually fight this fire at the moment? Tell us a bit more about that, especially working from home. It's even another layer of complexity involved.
Sure, of course, I'd be lying if I said it was not challenging and even stressful at times, because this is probably the worst crisis that our industry has ever experienced, maybe by its impact, its duration, its geographical scope. So I think, in addition, things are changing so rapidly, and there is a massive uncertainty which is challenging us all. So that I think has been quite challenging for us. So supporting our members to face this crisis has been what has driven our course of action at ETRC, and we try to do this, to the best of our ability in the given circumstances. We know retailers are struggling with shops which are fully closed in some countries, and they will keep struggling for as long as we don't have a clear picture, of when the end of the tunnel is. Similarly, we know it's very difficult for suppliers, in particular for brands, maybe big or small, which rely on travel retail, to drive sales. And we know that for some of them, in particular, small niche brands, they are really trying to survive at the moment. And if the crisis lasts much longer, it's gonna make it even more difficult. In addition, we know it's also complete unknown territories for our partners, such as airports, ports, airlines, cruise and ferry lines. So at ETRC, we've been trying to build bridges between all partners, because we still, strongly believe that we have to stick together during this crisis if we want to come out of this crisis together.
Indeed. And in terms of ETRC's efforts in order to make things easy for the industry, I know that you penned a letter to the European Commission not too long ago outlining the huge stress that this crisis was putting on the duty-free and travel retail industry in particular. Can you tell us a bit more about that and how it's been received so far?
Yeah, it's great to be in a trade association when everything goes fine. It's even more important in terms of crisis. The role of trade association is so important because you need to have a strong voice which collectively represent the industry and which can make a difference when talking to governments. So we've been trying to really have a clear and concise message when talking to the European Commission and to governments. And really our key message has been to say that our industry requires urgent support, financial support from governments. In particular, maintaining liquidity is absolutely essential. And that's what we need both the EU and the European Commission and national governments to understand. So we're starting to see already some positive reaction from the European Commission, which has kind of thrown away the rule book on state aid for the aviation sector, which we fully support because these are unprecedented times, and we know a strong reaction from governments, because otherwise companies will go bankrupt without financial support, even companies which were and are successful and healthy. So there's no way that we can survive this crisis if there is no financial support from governments. We also understand, of course, that we are a European body dealing mainly with European institutions, but the direct financial support will come from member states themselves and not centrally from Brussels. So we've been trying to coordinate that message and this action also with our regional and national associations, as well with our partners locally. And I think it's very important for our members, but also for the wider industry, that they understand that any demands for financial help and support has to be made at national level, even sometimes regional level, if you take the case of Germany or countries which have different level of governments. So, within ETRC, we've been saying strongly that we will support our members. We can give advice, we can share best practice, and we have been doing this so very actively. But ultimately, the response is a national response, and members need to understand that they need to reach out to European government individually, because they will be the one with the bucket of money eventually.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, before this all happened, there were many issues that you were having to deal with, Brexit being one of them, and you were doing really well with the progress on the digital labelling platform, etc., etc. I assume that all of these projects are on hold at the moment?
Absolutely not. I think that's actually the mistake that we shouldn't make. We are an industry which is so heavily impacted by COVID-19 that it would be easy to put everything on hold and only focus on this, which we understand a lot of suppliers and retailers are doing, because at the moment, and I think the title of your series is very important. It's about surviving, while we overcome the crisis. However, for ETRC, we've been very, very busy as well on other issues because the European Commission doesn't sleep. There is a boat full of legislation, and that boat doesn't stop sailing. So among some of the issues we've been dealing, as you say, Brexit, the deadline, for the United Kingdom to fully leave the EU and become a third country is still set on the 1st of January 2021. And as long as this is the case, we have to work against that deadline. The European Union recently published their position on Brexit and a draft agreement for the future relationship. We are confident that it doesn't contain any obstacles for the return of duty-free on the EU side, so that's extremely important, but we need to keep monitoring that. On the UK side, as you probably know, the UK government released a public consultation which is running until mid-May on the future of duty-free for the UK. So that's also very important that we keep engaging on the issue of Brexit and duty-free after 2021. You mentioned the ETRC labeling projects, which is, as you know, of paramount strategic importance for the industry, and so we believe. So we have actually launched the second phase of the project in February, thanks to the cooperation with TFWA. And yes, it's going to be more challenging because resources, especially from suppliers, are going to be a bit more scarce. But still, we have the engagement from retailers and suppliers because we understand that for the long term, it's really important that we keep pushing for this project. So I think that there are a lot of things still happening. A bit later in the year, as you know, there will be the meeting of the World Health Organization on tobacco issues. And there is still the threat that the World Health Organization would recommend a ban of duty-free sales. So we can't stop, engaging, even if it's a different type of engagement. We don't knock on doors, but we keep having calls, we keep sending letters, we keep engaging, so our voice can be heard. And definitely we can't afford to make the mistake to forget that there is a life, in terms of legislation apart from COVID-19, that's for sure.
Well, that's excellent to hear, and I think the whole industry will be pleased to hear that. So thank you, Julie. I have one final question for you. This crisis is unlike anything that you or I have ever seen in our lifetimes, and it's very easy to be disheartened, disappointed, more than that. Those words don't do it justice. But at the same time, I think we all know it's important to remain positive and continue prepping for a rebound in the business and recovery of traffic. What kind of positive message would you like to relay to the industry, and perhaps any advice you might want to give them?
Yeah, I actually celebrated my 10 years dealing with the travel retail industry in February. So I have been through the volcano ash crisis at the time, but as you said, it was in no way comparable to what we are living now. But still, our industry have been through many crises. It has shown its resilience, and I think, as we've heard from people who've been here longer, that our industry will bounce back even stronger. At least I have a passion in this industry. I truly believe that there's a crisis and we'll learn from it to build an industry even more resilient. We have so many fantastic brands, and they've also shown in this crisis that there's more to the concept of sustainability, which was kind of the buzzword in 2019. Here we've seen brands also showing what responsibility means. We had brands in the beauty, alcohol, foods, fashion sector who have been playing their part fully to try to combat the virus. And I think this has been, really positive and really welcome news to hear from our industry. Similarly, I can see, we have so many talented people in travel retail. I'm sure at the moment they're all buzzing with ideas about how they want to build industry again and how we can bring back travelers to our shop once the air traffic and the maritime traffic comes back as well. And I'm an optimistic at heart, so I also believe that people will want to travel again. I think this crisis also highlight how important and how interconnected our world is. I'm sure travelers will come back. We can see in China already some promising figures that domestic traffic is already kind of coming back. It will take a bit longer for international traffic, but I'm sure that when recovery comes back and that we can catch up with level pre-crisis, then retailers will be ready, brands will be ready, and we'll all be ready to welcome travelers back in our shops.
Thank you, Julia. I think the industry, again, will really appreciate that positive message. And again, thank you for talking to us today. And we wish you all the luck in the world going forward from this point. And we'll catch up soon. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. And to our viewers as well, I wish you all to stay in a good health, both mental and physical. And look forward to seeing you at events very soon, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.